Hi, welcome to Moms Writers Club. I'm Sarah,
And I'm Jessica.
and today we are going to talk about the things that scare us as writers and authors. If you could give us a quick like and subscribe, it will help us reach more authors and moms like yourselves. So let's just dive right in. When we thought about doing this topic for this episode, it was so funny. We were texting back and forth and we were like, oh, well, that's a good idea. And then it was just like, boom, 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 boom. Here's like 20 things that we're afraid of, you know? And
Specific to publishing and writing.
specific to the like creative life of being a writer and to the business of being an author and all those things. So we thought, okay, yeah, we should definitely talk
Be a
about
good
this.
episode idea. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we'll start at the top of the list. I think the number one that I think most people think of is rejection, because there's so much
Dun, dun,
rejection
dun.
in in the writing world, whether it's having someone read your manuscript for the first time and having them like take issue with it, or getting a rejection on a query, or having your book not sell. There are so many sources of rejection. And I think that, like, although rejection is definitely present in other parts of life, it's not quite the same. Like having an agent reply and say they're not interested in your book feels worse than like not getting a job that a bunch of people applied for, even though,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's still a thing that like you have to be the right match and everything, but it just feels so much personal because it's your book that you spend
Yeah,
all this time on, and it
yeah,
feels very, even though like it's not personal and it's all subjective, it still stings.
I know it's subjective, it's business driven. You know, they always talk about like there's lots and lots of great books that are great. It's just not the right fit at the right time. Sometimes I think of it like actors going on auditions, like that must be really
Mhm.
kind of intense. Like you put yourself out there and then like you don't get the part. And I don't
Yeah,
know.
I always felt excited to query at the possibility of getting a yes, or like the
Hmm.
rush you get when you get a full request. Like I still remember getting my first full request,
Yeah.
but the flip side of that is the rejection and how much it sucks and how hard it is. And it's also hard because it's not just usually one rejection. Like while querying, I got hundreds of rejections, and at
Yeah.
some point you hear that little blip on your phone that means you have an incoming
And
email,
you're just like,
and your first thought is, oh, another rejection.
yeah.
But the cool thing is, at some point it's not a rejection, but it sucks until you get there.
Yeah, and it kind of
Okay.
goes in waves too, I think. Like I feel like there was a point where like in the beginning it was hard, like when you first start querying or you first start sending out short stories, which was where I started, and you start getting rejections back and you're just like, "Oh, like it was so hard to send out that first story." I was like, "Oh my God, it felt so personal," you know. Um, but after I don't know, 6 months or whatever, like of getting rejections, I feel like I kind of adjusted. I was like, "Okay, it's cool. Like it's a numbers game." And then I think I got to a point where it was like, oh my God, I'm never going to stop getting rejections. Like, it's just never going to stop. It's never going to happen. I'm like,
Well,
"Eh,"
that's kind of one of the nice things about
you know?
flipping the game around, like we've talked about before, and like aiming to get 100 rejections a year.
Hmm.
That's like, for
That was
me,
big
when
for me.
I remember just reading that email or that blog that we have another episode we can link below about it, about aiming for 100 rejections, because it means you're putting yourself out there. But
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
just proves the point even more that like it's kind of a numbers game, and yes, you need a certain level of quality to your writing and it needs to fit the market well enough, but it's also one of those things where you should be getting rejections if you're putting yourself out there,
Yeah.
even though it's
Yeah.
hard. All right, what's next?
Telling people in your life that you are a writer, revealing your soft, vulnerable underbelly.
I love
Um,
this one because I didn't tell anyone that. I mean, like people who had known me for a long time knew that I wrote, and that I had written a lot growing up. But like I remember when I first like fessed up to being a writer, and I actually did it before I got an agent one time to help promote my critique partner's book. But I did it knowing that at some point I was gonna have to like come clean with the people in my life, so to say, that I was a writer, just because it doesn't come up. Like when you meet someone, or you like are hanging out with someone you work with or whatever, like, I mean, how often do we say, so are you creative? Are you an artist in any way? But
right.
I was
Doesn't
also
come up.
so glad. Yeah, I was so glad and so relieved when I finally did,
Yeah.
because I felt like, well, one, nobody in any way, shape, or form had anything negative to say. Everybody was
Mm,
so wonderful and
that's
supportive.
awesome.
And it made me feel like I could be honest with people, because I was spending like 30 hours a week working on books. So to be able to like, and now, so now I'm starting to like promote leading up to my first book release, my release of Make Me Disappear. And people are being they're just so excited for me. And
Yeah.
so like, so for me, it's been a really good thing, but I know it's not always like that. And I have certainly had
No,
people
it's
in my
not.
life who were less supportive. So I'm not saying it's all flowers and sunshine.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know I've sort of, I know people who have gotten negative responses from people in their life. So, I think you do have to be a little careful, to protect that soft, vulnerable underbelly. Um, but there does come a point where you have to come out and, reveal yourself because you need writer friends, you need a community. It's so key to getting through all of the 20 other things there are to be afraid of. I was
So
afraid of
for
getting on
you,
Twitter. I was afraid of going to writing classes. I was afraid of making a website. I had already gotten an agent and I was afraid of announcing to all my Facebook friends are mostly my real life like acquaintances. And like I've barely been on
Mhm.
Facebook. So I got an agent and I was like nervous to go back on Facebook and be like, hi everybody, I'm actually an author. You know? It was just
That's
like
exactly how it feels.
it was cringy.
So
And but you
I
gotta
have
get
a
through it.
question though. Like for me, I felt like I had two lives. I had the life
Mm.
everyone from before starting to write knew about, and then I had Twitter everything and
Hmm.
all of that. That was my writing life, and it was more like merging the two. And I had kept them very separate. Did you not keep them separate like that?
Yeah, mine were pretty separate.
Yeah, it is
And
different when you start to merge them a little bit, which at
yeah.
least for me right now, I feel like it's necessary, like with a book launch coming up, because I
Hmm.
want
Hmm.
people to know about it,
Yeah.
and I'm finding they want to support me in that, which is really cool.
And it does become easier to talk about when you have something like when you can say, oh, I just had a short story accepted, or I just got agented, or whatever. Like that can be easier than just sort of being like, yeah, I write books. And people are going to be like, oh
Yeah.
my God, are you going to make $1 million? Are you going to retire? You're just
Or they're like, they'll ask like, well, would I recognize the title? Can I find it in my bookstore? And it's like, well, I just finished the rough draft and I don't have an agent yet.
like,
There was
right, right,
definitely a period of that. But
right. It's hard to explain to people that you have a creative life in
mhm.
general because just a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
But
Well, that and the whole thing where like Brendan Sanderson put this really well in one of his videos on YouTube. He was like, when you're a writer, it's like people expect you to be publishing books and they don't see
mm,
the value in it if you don't
mm.
necessarily. Whereas like you can go play basketball 2 nights a week and it's just for fun and nobody assumes you're trying to be a professional basketball player. But like mention that you're a writer and
Exactly.
they're
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
well, either they
That's
think you're
great.
wasting your time or it's like, well, why haven't you published anything yet? Or even
Right.
if you like are on the path to like publication, like you have an agent or like you have a book deal, they're like, well, why hasn't it come out yet? And it's like, well, books take 2 years to come out. So
I know. Everybody I work with like knows about me getting my agent and my book deal because it all like basically happened while I was at work.
yeah.
And now they're like, "So is your book out yet?" And this was like I signed my contract like 3 months ago. Like, no, my
Yeah.
book is not out
Yeah.
yet.
And you got a year and
I've got
a
a
year and a
year
month or
from
so, right?
next month before it's March
Yeah.
2023. Okay, let's see. That people will judge you after reading your book.
Yes.
As
Go ahead.
authors, both of us who use the word fuck in excess of 100 times in our work, there is that.
Mine is less than 100 now.
Yeah.
It's down to like
Against her will,
50 or
though. No,
60.
I'm just kidding. Not exactly against her will.
No, I thought my editor had some very good points, and I don't mind saying that out loud. She asked me to like try to remove some of them, and I did, and I could see where she was coming from. I'm not disagreeing. I made a whole TikTok about it. It was very fun, and then trying to like, well, and it made me like think more about like the way I use like the word fuck in my writing, and
Yeah.
like when is it really necessary, and when. And it was hard because one of my characters, like, it's a lot of who he is to like think and talk this way. So
Hmm.
trying to preserve that, but also maybe not having every other word be the F bomb.
Yeah. Right.
So so our like current topic, people will judge you after reading your book. Being from Kansas, I have a lot of friends who well, I moved to Washington State because I felt like I fit in better. I love Kansas. I love my friends in Kansas, but I definitely am more of like, I just feel more at home in Washington State. I feel like the people around me are more, we're more of a similar mind on a lot of things. And so I'm like a little concerned that they're going to read my book with a lot of F words and trying to think of what else. I don't know. It's just, I mean, it's a thriller with like some messed up stuff in it because it's a thriller and I'm a little afraid that they're going to like judge me for it. And you know what? They probably won't. They're probably rolling their eyes at me if they're watching this like, Jessica, that's dumb. We would never judge you. But that fear is still there, you know?
Yeah. Because
Anyway.
we do get into some nitty gritty stuff when we write. I mean, whether it be like your sex scenes or your politics or your, you know, challenging gender norms, it's just whatever. Like we do get into some deep and sometimes controversial stuff in our writing, and it's a real thing, you know.
It's
That's
that, and I think, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, you know, like that's one of those things like telling people you're a writer, like you may need to be a little what's the word I'm looking for? Selective about who you actually share your stuff with, just to, you know, protect the soft, vulnerable, creative underbelly.
Part of it for me is, and this leads into one of our next topics, is the idea of people assuming everything is autobiographical because it's in your book.
Yeah.
Now, I will say there's like none of the situations in my book are anything that happened to me. However, some of those emotions are there. The
Mm-hmm.
emotions of like feeling trapped, or the emotions of um, well, I don't know else, but like I think most of us who write fiction, like some of that emotion, people say, write what you know. And to me, that has always meant like write what emotions you know. So maybe you've never been in this exact situation, but maybe you've
Right.
felt something similar and you can really put that into your writing. So yeah, I have some situations written into my books where I'm like, I really hope people don't think this is autobiographical, especially because sometimes in another one of my books, there is a situation where I'm like, I can see how people would think this is about this person in my
Mm-hmm.
past, and it's not.
Yeah.
But like there are similarities.
Yeah. And then you have to kind of be ready for the parts that are autobiographical. I mean, I let my sister read my sister is one of my beta readers, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, and that one character is totally mom." I'm like, "Yeah, kind of is." So I have to be ready for the fact that she is going to recognize everything. She's going to be like, "Oh, you had that boyfriend when you were 22, and this character is like him, isn't he?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got that one too."
Maybe you shouldn't be a beta reader anymore. Just kidding.
Fortunately, like we're very close, and
Yeah.
you know, I trust her and everything. But that's the thing with sharing it with close, you know, people who know you
Yeah,
well, is like they're going to identify those things, you
totally.
know.
My brother
And
read part of one of my books and he was like, oh, I know who this is about. And I was like,
you're like, "Ugh." Yeah. But then you also got to be like, listen, like, yes, kind of, but it's a book. It's just, it's
yeah.
fiction, you know?
And for me anyway, I feel like there's a level of like self-therapy in some of that.
Oh,
Like I'm not
totally.
writing about that person or about that situation, but yeah, some of the emotions that make this part of this book work are because
Yeah.
I've experienced something, you know, what like abstractly similar, or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
better way to put that. I can't think of it right now, but yeah.
Thematically similar. I know you hate that word. No, but like
No, I'm
my
fine.
my first book, my sister was like, "Yeah, that's really like what you did in your life." And you know, not like exactly how the story unfolds, but kind of this theme that I was sort of working with in the book, you know, about remaking yourself and coming back like to something that was your calling and stuff like that. She's like, "Yeah, that's kind of what you did in your life." And I'm like, "No, I know,
But
but
the thing is, like, the fact that you identify with it that way is one of the reasons that makes it such a powerful story, is
right,
because a
right."
lot of people will identify with it. I'm never really creepy thriller, and when people are like, "Is that autobiographical?" I'm gonna be
You're gonna
like,
be like, wouldn't you like
"Yes,
to
it
know?"
is." Have you seen my shirt?
What?
Thank you, Evie.
I love it. So fun.
Okay, back on topic.
Okay, let's do these two. There's two sides of this one coin. One is having so many ideas that you'll never be able to do them justice. You know, and you're looking at all your thoughts about all the things you want to write, and you're like, oh my God, I'm never gonna be able to do this.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have that problem. I have like one idea at a time, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. And magically like something usually appears. But I don't have that problem. But I can understand how
Mm,
that would be a problem, especially if you felt like they were all really good ideas and
yeah.
things that you like that mattered to you. You know, I feel like I had that problem earlier on. And now I have a lot of ideas, but I also often feel either I'm not ready to write one, or there's not enough there yet, but
Mhm.
eventually maybe I'll get to that idea if I figure it out.
In this
Do you feel that
in
way,
this
that you have a lot of ideas?
in this other
Yeah.
version of my life as a writer, I am a YA speculative author with 3 books. I have 3 ideas that I've probably gotten 20 or 30,000 words into. which I think are really good ideas. And I'm like kind of fascinated with them. And they're almost like full fledged stories in my brain. But I'm just like, fuck, I can't do all the things. Like, and I don't like YA is just not really my jam. So, like, when I found that these stories were
Yeah.
really kind of going that direction, I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm going to let this sit for a little while. And, they're still there. I may do something with them still. They seem to be
Yeah.
remaining timely, even as um, kind of circumstances change year by year, but I don't know.
You know who's really good at that is
Mm.
there's an author, her name is Kelly Armstrong, and she has written like all of the books. Like she must have made a list one day and was like, I don't want to miss out on writing any of these books. And she has like 5 adult series and a middle grade one and a couple YA ones. And she is so freaking impressive. And I don't know how she writes as much as she does. It's just incredible.
Yeah. I mean, if I wrote more, I would write more. But
You
anyway,
want more?
yes, I feel it. Like there's all these ideas, and I'm like, oh, I really want to write that one. I really want to write that one, and but the other side of that coin
Okay.
is also a problem that I have, which is
Having to
that
write another book,
I will never have another good idea again.
which is so funny because you're just like, I have all these ideas.
I know, but only one of them's good. The rest of them suck.
I worry about that.
That's
I
the
mean,
fear.
now I kind of trust myself that I'll like figure it out. I'll figure out the next book, but I definitely did worry about that. After I
Yeah,
wrote Make Me Disappear, I was really worried about that because it was the first time I felt like I had really come up with a good idea for a book.
and
But
then you wrote another one.
I did write another one we can't talk about. I mean, I
Well,
guess I
that's
might
nice
end up
that you've
talking about.
gotten like that you've kind of gotten through that cycle and you've sort of proved to yourself that yes, I can do it. I'm sort of right in the middle of it right now. I'm kind of in the middle of this draft where I'm like, and then I just flipped back to my first book where we're like at the line edits stage, like it's been gone over and developmentally edited. It's all good. It's very, very close to done. And I'm like, oh, this is so great. The voice is so strong and it's like such a full world. And then I go back to this book that I'm on the first draft and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have it anymore.
So connected to that, I would like to say another fear I have that so I'm going back and forth right now as well. I did developmental edits and line edits, and I'll have copy edits in the next week or two. But I'm like afraid of switching, and I've done 2 books at a time, like edited one and written one at the same time. But I'm like trying to write this book right now, but I have to keep stopping to revise the other book. And I'm
Yeah.
always afraid that I like won't be able to come back and like keep
Mm-hmm.
it up anymore, that I'll like lose it. Like
Yeah.
for those of you who have read the book Big Magic, I don't remember exactly how she words it, but like she talks about the book idea kind of being this like living, breathing thing, and how for her, if she doesn't like give it life pretty quickly, it like escapes her. And I'm like so afraid this book idea is just gonna flutter away like a butterfly. Which I know that that's not the case. I know it's fine, and like it's fine, it's
Yeah.
fine, but I still worry about it.
But then you
It's
come
hard to
back to
go
your
back
work
and
that you
forth.
haven't looked at in a couple weeks and you're like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I think I'll get back into this.
this
Yeah.
morning I read it and I was like, well, there are some things that need to be fixed, but I'm like figuring it out. It's okay. It's
Yeah.
not bad.
I
Okay.
don't write a blog, but I like toyed with it in the past and I wrote this one little thing about like and this was about like being creative and being a mom. So being a mom kind of like dispels the idea that your creative force is like some like flighty little fluttery butterfly
Mm-hmm.
that's gonna escape you
You
or
don't
like
got
some
time for that when
little
you're a mom.
field mouse that's gonna like run away if you don't like coax it gently out of the shadows. Like there are parts of the process that feel a little bit like that, but I was like, fuck no, at this point, like my creative life is like a fucking draft horse, you know? It's like one of those Budweiser Clydesdales. My creative life is this resilient thing that's out there in the barn, like chewing on hay, waiting for me to get back
It's
to
like
it, you
it's like
know?
a weed that won't die.
It's just not like it's cool. That big old shaggy horse is not going anywhere. It's not like so I don't know. So
I
I
like
think that
that
that is one of
comparison.
the strengths we have as moms is like being able to like bring our attention back again and again
Yeah.
and again and again, you know?
Oh, I know what I
So,
want to talk about next.
ooh, yeah, what?
Social media angst. Angst, which is
I go for
correct.
angst myself. I think you can do either.
I grew up saying angst, but I
Mm.
like the way angst sounds. Leave that in.
It sounds more
Um,
angsty.
So when I first get on a platform, I have no clue what I am doing. For example, Twitter. Oh my gosh, I did with Twitter what I now do with TikTok, where I like created an account and did not use it off. Like I'd use it for like a day and be like, no, and then like stop using it for weeks at a time. And like I had such a hard time like typing out something to put on Twitter and post it. And I still do. Like if it weren't for Moms Writers Club, I would like post so rarely because I just never know what to say. And it was really hard. And it was hard because like for me at least, I was trying to figure out like, do I want to use my name or do I want to use a pen name? If I want to use a pen name, what pen name am I going to use? You know, do I want people in my real life to know about this, which now everyone does, but they didn't for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And same with Instagram, like trying to figure out like where your limits are with TikTok, which I have 1,000 followers now on TikTok. I feel like such a badass. And that's
You
like
are such a
nothing,
badass.
but like, you
That's
know, it
awesome.
feels good. But like TikTok is even worse because it's like video and you're like, is this dumb funny or is this just dumb? It's just dumb most of the time. But nobody cares. And you know what?
No,
That's
but
what I've kind of figured
yeah,
out.
that's the charming thing about TikTok is that like
And
it really is okay to just be like your own dorky self.
yeah, nobody cares. People are like, oh, we love that you're such a dork. But I'm really glad I like decided to do the social media thing and figure it out because that is how I met Sarah.
I thought you were gonna say that is how like you're gonna sell 1,000,000 books, which is also true.
Oh,
So
well, everybody says that social media does not sell books,
is that true?
but
Yeah.
they say that. You know what? I was actually thinking about that today, and I would agree it doesn't sell books, but it allows you to like build a community, and your community supports you and helps you like on your writing journey and on your publishing journey. So I think it's true that for the most part, it doesn't sell books. Although I definitely have purchased a couple of books as a result of like reviews of certain people and stuff. But I think it helps into that equation to help you sell books, but I don't think it should be viewed as a way to sell books because
Yeah.
like I've seen authors that do that. All they do is post about their books and I don't follow them because I don't want to see them post
Yeah.
their book a billion times or their selfie a
No.
billion times. I want them to be supporting other people. I want to see what their dog looks like because I care about their dog a lot. You know, I want to see like what their book haul looks like. Like
Yeah, it's like Jane Friedman's thing about like what are you creating that's of value to other people?
anyway, okay. So along with that, I want to talk about the fear of people won't be interested in your book or helping you launch your book because I think every author who's about to publish is worried about this, you know. So I just put up an ask for people to be on a book launch team for my book that comes out in May, and I was so afraid nobody would be interested or reply. Like I knew some people would. I knew that like my brother would. I knew that my mother-in-law would.
Just
I knew
so
that my
funny.
husband would sign up and then never do anything. But like a lot of people responded and they all had like I had a section where you could like ask like I said, do you have any questions for me? And I got so many like sweet messages. I legit started crying because people just wrote things like I'm proud of you, I'm so excited for you. And I just didn't expect that, you know. So
I
but I
did.
was really afraid of that. I was
I expected that
what?
for you. But I
Oh.
expected all
Well,
those
thank you.
things for you. I was like, Jess is going to put this up and it's going to be like, bam, she's going to fill that lunch team up like immediately.
Well,
And,
thank you.
but yeah, no, when it's
I'm
you, you're like,
still,
I'm throwing this party. And then what if no one
yeah.
comes?
Can
And
someone please show up, please? Sarah, you have to be there just in case no one comes.
right.
You
You got to
know
have
where
those
you
friends
like
who come early
require
and
your
have a
friends
drink
to
with you
come.
before the party starts. So it feels like a party when everybody else gets there. You know, that's important. You got to have those people.
Yeah. So now I'm afraid that nobody's going to like continue, which I know people will participate. People have been wonderful, but like that's now the next fear. It's like the line of fears around one topic.
Yeah. Well, it's like
Okay.
anytime we do something new, there's that like, ah, what if this
Well,
doesn't
that and
work?
like you're asking something of people. You're asking for their
Yes.
time. You're
Right.
asking them to read your book and to post a review on Amazon
Yeah.
because that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And you're asking them to do things for you. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's hard anyway. I think we as women struggle with it
I
more.
was going to
And
say the
there's
same
like
thing. Yep.
fear around it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay,
That
so
fear.
next one. People you admire will not like your book. If
And
you
this
don't
one,
like my book, please lie to me about it. Just say it's awesome.
well, there's sort of a whole category of things that create trepidation in me, having to do with whether I'm good enough, and
Yeah.
you know, being and this came up in the post that Jess put up, asking, what are folks afraid of in the creative process of writing? And one is like, I'm not good enough to tell this story. Like, I've got this story that I really, really want to tell. And I'm like, either my taste level isn't there or my skill level isn't there. Somehow or other, like, I'm not equal to the task of telling this story that I feel like I desperately need to tell. So there's that one. And then when you're done, when I give my book to people whose opinion I really value, and so this is coming up for me because we're going to be asking for blurbs soon with my debut that's coming out in March of 23. And so we're going to be sending this book to authors that I admire to see if they want to like give it a read and say how much they like it for the book cover, And so I'm a little bit like, oh, what if people whose opinion or whose work I really admire, like, what if they don't like it? What if they think it's cheesy? What if they like? And this is my sister too. If you're watching these videos, Annie, this is you. Um, she just has like such fabulous taste in books, like, and is such a like deep reader of literature, and she's very honest with me too. So I'm like, whenever I send her something new, I'm a little bit like,
I do also fear like that I won't be good enough for certain ideas I have or certain things I want to do. But, and I know this particular episode is not about giving advice, but I find that like the only way I'm going to find out is if I try. And so far, things have gone pretty well. You'll figure it out. You'll teach yourself to do it. Of course, you don't know how to do it because you've never done it. So just try and you'll figure it out. Or I remember a quote by Stephen King where he was like, I stopped writing this book and came back to it 10 years later or something like that because I wasn't ready. And I definitely have had ideas where I'm like, I want to do that, but I'm not quite sure what I want to do with that yet. So I'm going to put it off like and come back to it later. Y'all, my daughter is dropping her nap. And it's awful. I mean, it's not actually awful because she's a super good kid. And we're trying to shift to like quiet playtime in her room because I just can't do never getting a break ever.
You need a break.
So we'll see how it goes. She's doing pretty well. Knock on wood. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think like in that same category, this is one that like somebody posted this when we asked for, what are you afraid of? And I was like, oh my God, like this person knows me deeply. And that is being afraid that you actually suck, but you can't tell that you suck and nobody will tell you.
I totally
you actually
get
do
that.
suck.
I worried about that. Yeah, I worried about that early on. And I remember I had beta readers who were not like, they were wonderful and they gave me their valuable time, but they also were not very experienced themselves. So they told me things were really good that like looking back, I'm like, I know they weren't really good. And, they did it. They weren't trying to like do me harm, but it's hard, when you're not sure if you're good and you're also, you kind of want that external validation and yeah. I don't think that ever totally goes away because even now, like even today, I sent stuff to critique partners and was like, is this any good?
They're like, oh, I don't know about this. Yeah. Being predictable, being boring, being cliche, those things all like, they're like, that's my little weak underbelly.
Okay, what's next? Oh, your agent or editor will not like your second book. It's a very real fear. It's like, oh my God, I hope my agent likes my book and I hope they still want to represent me because, like with the first book, they like it because they like picked it out of the query and they requested it and then they read it and then they offered on it. And you're like, they love that book, obviously. What if they don't like the next book though, because it's.
And then we have to have a conversation and then we might have to break up and then everything might completely fall apart. And maybe I only have one good idea in me and maybe I actually really suck and nobody is telling me that I suck and I'm going to get rejected. And
so I like how you're getting basically every single one.
Exactly. I know. And they do that. They pile on like that.
Okay.
I know. I'm about to send.
We have freaked anyone out. I don't know of anyone who's broken up with their agent because they hated their second book. I'm sure it's happened, but I don't know of it ever happening. My agent likes my second book.
Yay. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm providing a second book to my editor it's due on June 1st. And she was basically like, unless like, if you need my help, I'm here for you, but you don't need to send me anything. She's got a synopsis.
Gonna love it.
And I'm like, oh my God, like, what if she looks at this
and she's
like,
synopsis and your writing is wonderful and your characters are wonderful.
I'm still scared. I'm still as scared. Mm-hmm. Not having enough time.
I relate to this very seriously right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't have enough time. We've had a couple of requests to do some more things with Moms Writers Club, and we just can't right now. Like I don't have time, and Sarah doesn't have time, and I feel like with what I already have on my plate, I don't have enough time because I don't have time to just relax,
Hmm.
you know. And I also feel like there's always more that I could or should be doing with
Yeah.
working towards my book release, um, which that is a whole different topic, but at least with that, and I think this applies to everything, picking and choosing like a few things to really focus
Yeah.
on has been helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
kind of
that's
in
kind of
a right.
addressing like the time you
Mhm.
have in a day. And me, like as a woman of a certain age, um, I have this little bit of a feeling like I don't have enough time in my life to write all the things I want to write, you know? And, I have reasonably good health in my family. I'm expecting to live a good 40 more years, but still, like, there's this feeling like the whole thing moves so slowly. And like, it came to this kind of late. And yay, I'm glad it's happening. It's all really good. But fuck, like, I don't have all the time in the world anymore, you know?
Having to shelve a book is really hard. The
Oh,
first few
yeah,
books
like,
I queried,
oh, feeling like you're
making
writing
that
and you're
decision.
writing, you're writing, and you're like, is this just gonna wind up on the shelf? You know? Like, is
Yeah.
this gonna go nowhere? I know that feeling.
It's a very real fear, especially during querying. You know, when I was writing the book that did get me my agent, even with that one, I was like, what if I write this and revise it and query it and it goes nowhere?
Yeah.
And especially when I was querying was after the pandemic had hit, like at the end of
Hmm.
20, like summer and fall of 2020. And I mean, things are already slow, but they like really slowed down. Like I was not
Yeah.
hearing back. It's hard to like think about it and worry about it and think of all of the
Yeah.
time and work you put into it. And
Yeah.
to be at that point where you are like actually making that decision. I'm not going to send out more
Oh,
queries on this
yeah.
book, or
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's time to move on to the next thing. And it
Yeah.
usually is a very concrete decision, like a moment in time where you're like, I'm done working on this book. But it's
Yeah.
also a powerful thing because it means you're moving on to the next thing. And I think
Hmm.
that that is a very valuable decision to be able to make. And it's hard, but it moves you forward.
Yeah. And you can't like the thing that I don't ever want to do is like just work and work and work and work and work on one thing
Yeah.
forever and ever that just isn't going anywhere, you know?
Right.
I
The
don't want to
next
go in
book.
that hole. Yep, right, next book.
Okay.
All right.
We are back a couple weeks later after some technical difficulties.
And we just wanted to wrap up this episode because we just spent an awfully long time talking about all the scary, horrible, terrible, no good, very bad things about the writing life.
Okay. I once tried out for the soccer team and I made junior varsity instead of varsity, and I started crying, and my new coach, my junior varsity coach, came up to me and he said, I'm glad to see you crying because that meant that it meant a lot to you and that you worked very hard for it. So it's okay. Is this working? I don't know if this comparison is
Yeah,
working.
this is good.
It's okay to like feel fear about these things because these
Yeah.
things are important and they
Yeah,
matter
yeah, yeah, yeah.
greatly to
I
you.
love
But
that. Hmm.
I think the key is not letting it completely consume you. That when you get to that point that you're like, you know, like trembling or just really like
Yeah.
stressing over it,
Or when
talk to
it's really
someone about it.
affecting your mental health,
Yeah.
And I think mindfulness, all the mindfulness practices bring a lot to bear here because so much of what fear is about in general, and certainly the fears we were talking about in this episode, is all about like what might happen, like
Mm-hmm.
what's maybe going to happen in the future, like if I do this or I don't do that, or what's going to happen, like these are all things that are sort of like spinning out into the future. And if we can just sort of stay in the present with what we're doing and do the thing that's in front of you and write the thing and send the query letter or whatever, even make the pitch, like just do what's in front of you or just take the breath that you need to take next,
Yeah.
you know?
It's taking one step at a time. It's going to be okay. It's a query. It's not the end of the world. I think you in another episode were the one that pointed out like, you know, don't be afraid of querying. Like nobody's going to die if you get a
Right.
rejection. It's a
Right.
query. And I know it's really hard in the moment to think about it that way, but just take a deep breath.
Right.
And if you really are struggling with this, it's okay to take a step back for a while. It's okay to get help for it. Talk to a friend about it.
No, it's true. I mean, sometimes it's good to be subjective about things. I mean, your emotions are real, they are what they are. And sometimes it's helpful, I don't know, to me to step back and be a little bit objective because, like, I'm a cancer survivor. And sometimes I get nervous about things and I'm like, you know what, Sarah? It's not cancer. So,
Yeah. So to end this on a high note, next week's episode will be about all the things we love about writing and all the things that we celebrate about writing. So it's not all bad. It's not all about being afraid, but it's good. It's good sometimes to like um, be cognizant of the things that cause you fear and cause you stress,
and know that
recognize
you're
them.
not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone. We all feel that way sometimes. Anyway, thanks for joining us today. Please give us a like and a subscribe. We have a Moms Writers Club chat every other Wednesday night on Twitter. You can find me at author Jess Payne.
And I'm at Sarah Reed Author.
And we, like I said, we host this every other Wednesday night. We also do writing sprints. If you want to be in the know about Moms Writers Club, we have a newsletter. It is sent out only when we have something coming up. It's not something we will spam you with, and you can sign up below. In the meantime, thanks for joining us. We have lots of other episodes on all things writing if you'd like to check them out. Thank you. Bye.